Did you not hear the other more seductive destinations?
Why, what's wrong with Virginia?
Well, I guess we're going to find out.
Hello, lovers. Welcome back to And Just Like That, The Writer's Room, the official companion podcast of And Just Like That from Max. I'm Michael Patrick King, writer, director, and executive producer of And Just Like That. Today, I'm here at the writing table with executive producer, writer Elisa Zuritsky.
Hi.
Co-executive producer, writer Samantha Irby.
Hi.
And executive story editor and writer Lucas Froehlich.
Hi, guys.
Hi, everybody. Today we are going to discuss the very exciting Episode 3, Carrie Go Lightly, written by Samantha Irby and directed by me, Michael Patrick King. Now, before we get any further, I want to remind you, if you haven't seen episodes 1 or 2 or 3, please stop listening to us now and go and watch and come back, because we'll be spoiling some alerts as well. Okay, let's talk about the title, first of all. The title, Carrie Go Lightly, is an homage to Holly Golightly from Breakfast at Tiffany's. Correct, Samantha?
Yes.
And what it really implies is that Carrie...
I've never seen it.
You're just a
I was trying to sound convincing. Yes.
Like you're on a quiz show.
Correct.
You're just a pop culture...
What is correct?
It is a reference to Holly Golightly, played by Audrey Hepburn, and is sort of, up until our Carrie Bradshaw, kind of considered the Manhattan single girl of her day, troubled as well. But this episode, Carrie Golightly, is really about Carrie going lightly into Virginia, going lightly into a forbidden area, which is the thin ice that is covering her relationship with Aidan and his family. So it starts in a Zoom with Carrie's publisher, Amanda, played by Ashley Atkinson, who we love. Every time we see her,
Can't get enough of her.
It's the most glorious morning Zoom. Everybody looks wonderful and sounds wonderful. And basically, Samantha, you know a lot about this. It's your publisher asking you to go around the country and push your book, right?
Yes. For some people, it's the best part of the job. For people like me who prefer to be a recluse, it is the worst part of the job, coming up with excuses for why you can't go to the very reasonable things they want to send you to. And I love that we don't have Carrie pick the obvious ones.
South by Southwest in Austin would love to host you for a one-on-one interview with maybe someone you admire. And some memoirist panel in Williamsburg, Virginia reached out, but I don't know who they are, so who cares?
Virginia? Williamsburg, Virginia. Yeah, I'd consider that one.
We really wanted to find a way to get Carrie to Virginia, because in season 2 of And Just Like That, we avoided sort of going there. Story-wise, we didn't know what the story was. We didn't want to go to Virginia and come back. But this season, we knew one of the side trips we wanted to take in our story car was definitely Carrie to Virginia, to see the farm, to see Aidan's family, and to put her in that world. But Carrie wants to be a little bit more politic than that, so she needs a reason to go. And here it is at her doorstep, a book tour where she's going to push her books. So you go right from there into the soft opening of Hot Fellas. And when we say soft opening, there's a lot of unsoft things in this production. But it starts on one of the workers in their onesie. There's Hot Fellas package onesie. And by the way, I just want to say that the song that we're playing is by Bread. The 70s song in a bread store. In case you missed it, it's a bread song in a bread store.
Yes.
So Anthony comes out. It's his soft opening.
Yeah. But I also want to mention that when last we saw Carrie and Aidan, they had this romantic night together. They had sort of addressed their communication policy. She felt really great about it. Then she shoots him this table she's eyeing for their romantic house that they'll one day inhabit together. And he emojis back with a thumbs down. And we kind of left her in this, she was like back off her balance. Like, what is this? And she emojis back with eye rolls, but it's kind of an open, question of like, when are they going to see each other? What's it going to be like when they see each other?
We talked a lot in the writing room about how much you're allowed to go into the forbidden zone, the turf of like being in a relationship with someone. When do you go forward? When do you stay back? And for us, we wanted Carrie to go forward ever so lightly.
Mm-hmm. So then it's the question of like, how does she get there? And she wants a wingman.
One of my favorite things about the hot fella scene is Miranda is full on sarcastic Miranda. She is everything Carrie says. Miranda's got a really funny comeback in terms of framing this ridiculous relationship with her and Aidan, that she's going to go for an overnight and who wants to join her. And the other new dimension in the coffee shop scene is that Seema thinks Miranda's hilarious. So it's the first seeing of that.
I love the two of them together, and I love if I could just write spicy zingers for Miranda all day, that would be my dream.
Yeah, I mean, it is fun.
It's also like a reflection of their growth as friends, where Seema, when she was like a newer friend, when Miranda's making a zinger towards her, it's like to a new friend, you don't want to laugh because you're like, you don't want to be rude to your new friend. But they're like, she knows Carrie enough now that she knows her spikes and flaws and fun of it all. So it's like kind of nice to see that, like,
see Seema making fun of her a little bit.
Just going with it.
Yeah.
And it really feels like the really sarcastic girl in school and then her friend laughing in the back of the class. And you just see Carrie taking the hits. Boom, boom, boom. You know, she's like, all right. She even calls them the Sisters Grimm, which I love. Okay, Sisters Grimm. And then what happens is Carrie gets a phone call that says Aidan's wife on her phone. And this is a small, interesting detail. But she tells the girls it's Aidan's wife. And Seema says, ex-wife, ex-wife. And I just think it's interesting that Carrie is always going to think of Kathy, played by Rosemary DeWitt, as Aidan's wife, even though they're divorced. Now, why is she calling? You know?
It's really interesting.
And we love Rosemary so much when she came on to play Kathy last year that we started this season. One of the first calls we made was to her to see, could you come back as Kathy? Because we really wanted the Kathy-Aidan family mix to be real.
Yeah.
And she's calling Carrie with something that I would have never come up with ever, even though I probably should be on Adderall.
Right.
I'm not.
Well,
and same again.
Yes.
Oh, okay, here it goes. I was wondering if, do you think you could bring some Adderall for Wyatt?
You want me to bring Adderall down to Virginia?
Trust me, if I hadn't exhausted every other possible avenue, I would never ask. There's a nationwide shortage, and I can't get my hands on it.
Well, I need to speak right now for the mothers of America and the mothers in this writer's room, speaking specifically to me and Julie, who are definitely in the thick of the ADHD meds shortage. It's a real thing. It's ongoing. It brings us to our knees. And we know there are, millions of parents out there who are just in a constant quest for these drugs. So we've been wanting, actually, I think it's something we've even pitched in previous seasons, but this felt like the perfect moment to actually turning a regular, quote unquote, regular mom into, a desperate drug addicted. Where can I get these drugs?
I mean, it's an interesting way to introduce a relationship beyond the Aidan of it all. She calls Carrie and says, I hear you're coming down. And then Carrie makes that joke. She says, just have a request, don't come. So you see that they're laughing about it, and it's all very lovely
adult.
and congenial. And then she says, I can't get Adderall. Can you bring some? And Carrie's like, huh?
Why would you think I would have?
I mean, the idea that a single person is being called by somebody from Virginia because New York's filled with drugs and it's popping out of everywhere. Adderall.
Okay, but in Kathy's defense, for those of us who do not live in New York, people who live in New York, your whole thing is like, we can get anything at any time. We can get anything at any time. Yeah. So Kathy was putting her to the test.
She's being resourceful.
Here's anything. Get it for her.
No,
it's interesting, too, because the last time she met with Carrie, she put her kids forward first. She said, whatever you do, do not write about my kids. So it's always putting the kids first. This is uncomfortable, she says. This is really uncomfortable, but my kids need this. So it's both Kathy and Aidan always putting those kids forward above their personal needs.
Yeah.
And then she comes back in and announces to the table that she has to get Adderall because LTW has, of course, arrived. Anthony was beyond upset she wasn't there yet, as she's a very popular mom influencer. And this is where you get the beginning of the little tiny wound that Charlotte has, that she's not quite the momfluencer that LTW is. And it's the beginning of Charlotte's storyline, which is, am I not enough? Am I missing something? Am I not realized yet in my full potential as a icon?
I'm cool too. I can do things.
So when no one knows what to do, Charlotte, of course, picks up the ball and goes over to another table where conveniently some ladies came in with LTW from Charlotte's school, and she asked them if they have Adderall.
And this, by the way, is something that happens. Like, moms do rely on other moms for drugs sometimes. Like, it's in a pinch, you're desperate, and
in most times, just white wine.
I think we've moved on from
We've
wine
evolved
to
white wine,
meds.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it was a fun way of getting Carrie connected in an uncomfortable way to Kathy. And fresh, I think, because I've never seen this anywhere. Could you bring Adderall? Can you drug mule Adderall down to Virginia?
Just adds a layer to, like, Carrie's already in a place where, she's feeling odd about this text, but she's trying to put on a good face for whatever. So it just adds another layer of complication to the trip of uncomfortableness and going into it with an odd pretense.
Yeah, but also at the same time showing that what should be odd or awkward is actually not, because they're friendly with each other. Like, that's showing a very, like, there's no tension here about you and my ex-husband. Like, and I
No
continue
surface
to
tension,
love
yeah.
I
And I
continue
think-
to love that, I think.
I think from Carrie's perspective too, it gives her the opportunity to, like, prove herself in a way, like, because she is at the disadvantage, right? Like, this woman has kids with him. This woman lives in the same state he does. It's a big opportunity for her to be like, yeah, I'm a part of this. You can rely on me. We're all in this great big soup together.
Right. And, we have often talked about how we can use the Hot Fellows as a communal space, meaning one story starts another, starts another, starts another. And we see right after this, we go into LTW's workplace where she's coming in with the bread to Grace, her editor, and basically saying, all we do is eat bread now because a friend opened a store, which is important because now Anthony is a friend. Mm-hmm. And then Grace has big news, which is she's been offered to be the editor on the new Steve McQueen documentary. And LTW is very excited until she finds out that it means Grace leaves. Now, we in the writing room talked a lot about this. Mm-hmm. Female friendships, work friendships, what happens when there's a conflict of interest and one person leaves. And it was very interesting. And thank God we got Quincy, who's such an amazing actress, that you all of a sudden feel this connection that they've had for 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like one of our goals this season was to, like, continue pulling back the layers of all the characters. And so far, we've seen LTW has been, like, a model, like, almost perfect person with maybe she wasn't a great public speaker, but other than that, she was pretty flawless. So this was just a great opportunity, and we really had to think carefully about how it actually played out. But, like, how can we see her not so perfect and maybe
Sharp edges.
Sharp edges.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Sharp edges and territorial and a bit of a diva.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is what's underneath it, we later find out, is insecurity. But what comes first is, how could you do this to me?
Mm-hmm.
And the backstory for them is LTW has been making this documentary for 8 years, but keeps stepping away because of the kids. And Grace has been there.
Yeah.
And so LTW leaves very sort of haughty. And then she walks right into Cheryl and Isha, who say, how's Michelle Obama coming? Which is like another thing she just, like, I can't even think about. But we find out, we next see her at home killing a plate of mashed potatoes, just killing. And, I direct this. And when Nicole came to the set, by the way, one of my favorite lines that Samantha put into this thing is, I think they're already done, stand down, about the potatoes. They're already dead, stand down. But when Nicole came to the set, she was wearing her glasses. And I was like, oh, I didn't see you wearing your glasses. Why are you wearing your glasses? She says, because I'm not just mashing potatoes. I'm still working in my head. I came from my office. I'm not just
home yet. Yeah.
But on top of that, you get that sort of comic Carol Lombard, zany, I'm smart and stupid at the same time. You know what I mean? I mean, it was such a great choice of an actor. And you realize, oh, actors are really living this out beyond the scenes.
Yeah.
She was thinking, she's always working, even though she's mashing potatoes, which is great. And what happens in the scene is Herbert, basically the perfect husband.
I know I'm risking death by mashing, but I feel the need to inject a little bit of reality here.
You want reality? Reality is I have a very aggressive timeline and no editor. How's that reality?
Baby, when you stopped working on your film full time to have Gabby, Grace was always there, waiting. 1 year on, 1 year off, 8 off, willing to roll with whatever worked best for you in your life. It's about Grace's life. And maybe it's time to start thinking a little bit about what works best for her.
You know, it is one of those things where you can be on this one track mind of like, it's poor me and et cetera. And then a partner can actually like hold you to the fire a little bit. And you get out of your own lane and start to see the bigger picture. And sometimes a partner can do that in a good way of kind of just see the objectivity there.
Yeah.
I also like that it gave us the opportunity to rep for the childless among us. How like often people, when you work with people with children, it's sort of like, well, that's our child. Like, don't we all want what's best for you because you're the one with the kid? And it's like, sometimes it's like, okay, I waited for your kid, for you to have your kid. I waited for you to wean the kid. And now you're having another kid. And now it's time for me to do my thing. I think that was really exciting to me that like, you know,
That Grace be
we didn't have to put the kids first.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like there's so much patience for, you know, she's given her so much patience, but there is a boundary there. And it's kind of like interesting to see someone that's, you know, she technically works for LTW while working with her, but to find that fine line of like Grace stepping forward, but doing it respectfully, I thought it was just like a really nuanced power dynamic of like the personal and that, as we discussed. Like,
right, and because you think the personal is first, she's surprised when LTW has a bad reaction. And she's thrown and she has to recover. And she said, I picked a croissant because I thought you'd be happy for me. It's really sad and sweet. And
honest.
And honest.
I love the honesty of Grace in that scene when, you know, LTW ends the scene saying, like, take time to think about it. And a lot of people in that moment might have said, okay, I'll take a day, you know. And she doesn't. Like, she
says,
stands behind her decision. She's like, I don't need a day. I'm doing this. I appreciated that in the writing, Sam.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think like it'd be curious to do that perspective of like LTW in that same situation. What would she do? You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where you have to step out of yourself and you have to swallow the uncomfortableness for someone else's success. Sometimes it is on yours.
And as forward LTW is in her life, she has put herself behind the kids. So it is an interesting mirror. She has many times put herself behind the kids' needs. That's why the movie took 8 years. And behind Herbert's needs, which is the dynamic we're playing with Herbert and Lisa, like when they're both doing something forward motion, who wins? Who wins the spotlight of who's is more important? Speaking of more important, Charlotte's job always has been important to us to get her back to work. and one of the
Her at work.
One of the things that happens in New York every year on the Upper East Side at the Armory is TFAF, which is the European Fine Arts Foundation. And it is a collection of fine arts, very, very tony, very beautiful. And you go in, buy very fancy paintings, and galleries represent there. So when we had a chance to once again broaden what Charlotte's job is, we thought, let's put her at TFAF selling. And also we brought with her the gallerinas who we love, the 3 gallerinas, Leela, played by Bonnie Milligan, Kai, played by Daphne Zell, and Anastasia, played by Mariah Strongen. And the idea that these 3 are still drunk, still hungover from a night of partying. And all they love Charlotte, but all they really want is Advil.
And yes, another drug that is coming into
drugs.
Charlotte. This is Charlotte's
Do you want to tell us something about yourself, Elisa, at this point?
No. But I will say that I remember very clearly the day in the writer's room where Samantha Irby put her foot down and was like, we need to get Charlotte partying again. We want her, because she had that one night last season where she stayed out too late and she threw out her phone in a drink, and Sam was like, we're not done with Charlotte the partier. So
no, so it set in motion that Charlotte
how do we
would then,
build this
how do we
wild
build
night?
this? And the other thing I want to point out about the Gallerinas saying to Charlotte, and this is important, they say not like, don't come, you're nothing. They say, we hate it when you poop the party. Please come. They're always wanting her. I mean, that's another thing. It's like Carrie and Lisette. It's like the Gallerinas in Charlotte. There's no real box. It's just people like people. And these girls are in a different place than Charlotte, but they're all in the same job. So they have an enormous likes.
Yeah, and that's real. A lot of, we all have friends who are much older and much younger. Yeah.
It's not just like partying for partying. It's like it is actually a business thing for Charlotte to do this, and figuring out that she, like, in her 50s has to be doing a lifestyle that is not necessarily natural to 50s is a fun setup for the balance of all the things
it's a
of being
fun
a
writing
mom.
challenge.
Yeah, right. It's because she has to go sell. And that's because no matter what, Charlotte still is competitive and she wants to do well at her job. And the scene that we follow this with is her with the family, and she's like totally a martyr. And she's telling her family, my career's bad because of you. And the kids are not having it.
They're not having it.
I'm too busy here being mom. You don't have to be here every night. Stop exaggerating.
Yes. Being like, that's kind of an excuse, Mom.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need you.
Go out.
You don't have to cut off every crust of every sandwich. I loved it.
And then you have Giuseppe, who's sort of this onlooker, saying, "Well, which clubs are they going to without you?" And she goes, and I'm going to try to imitate Kristen. That's the thing, Giuseppe. I don't know. Like,
Perfect.
She doesn't know even what the clubs are, and that brings up Harry's thing that he's sort of out of it at work. And the idea that he's not cool either, and then Charlotte and him are trying to argue that they're cool, and then the kids are like, you're not. And Anthony's
Don't
like,
even try.
You're
please.
not. And then they come up with the plan, Giuseppe against the cool drink of water in the corner, saying, why don't you ask Carrie to get you clubs to go to the
Shopping with you.
And so that comes out there, and then that's a little thought we never had, Harry and Carrie together, Carrie, and then
Love them together.
And then the Anthony story starts up right then when he says he's helpful for everybody but me, and you find out that Giuseppe doesn't want to wear the onesie, he doesn't want to be objectified, and not even for Anthony. And our little amazing Rock says, yeah, good for you, G. Like, that's cool.
Right.
Don't be objectified.
Always high-minded, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're all like, get back in the suit.
Enough with the soft cashmere, the flowy cashmere. Get in the onesie. Get in the denim onesie. The interesting thing about when you get to do a show for a long time, you get to have these scenes that feel so casual they almost shouldn't be in the show. And the Carrie Miranda putting together the cat tree feels to me like one of those amazing. Luckily, the show's long enough for time-wise to just show these two putting together a cat tree and talking.
Also, it's a very nice cat tree. I gotta say, it's an aspirational cat tree.
Yeah,
this is not your sad.
I can't show my cats.
I'd have that, and I don't even have a cat.
Yeah, I know it is. We went through many, many cat trees till Karen found that Karen Weisel Holmes found the Carrie Bradshaw cat tree, and that's it. And I love that Miranda is just trying to figure it out, and Carrie is basically saying, I thought of something. I'm going to give Aidan a key. Like she needs a prop to justify why she's going. It's not enough to be honest. She's going to give him a key to the apartment. Miranda busts her balls again, and Carrie finally says, hey, this is hard.
Can I please get a cease and desist on the Aidan wisecracks? This is hard, you know? I'm trying to figure it out.
Sorry. I thought I was being funny, ha-ha, but I think I'm coming off funny asshole.
I love that line of like, is this romantic or is this pathetic? Or not pathetic, but are you holding on to something in such a way? And when Miranda tears her down, it's hitting that vulnerability where she's trying so hard. You know, this is her trying so hard. So it's like for Miranda, a normal joke she would usually fly with, it's actually she's that vulnerable right now and that kind of like on the line that it's kind of one of those moments where that joke hits a little harder. And I like Miranda, that warm response to her friend kind of like reading the room and being like, okay, this, you know, this is more complicated.
I'm going to cool out on these.
Yeah, I mean, you're so confident typically, but this is not
the confident
Carrie.
She got through like a battery of 4 jokes before Carrie finally said, it's enough.
Yeah. Cut it out.
Yeah, Carrie's a good sport.
Yeah.
And then Miranda announces the fact that she also is doing something kind of romantic. She's asked Joy out. And Carrie says for a date, and she says no for drinks. It's an excuse. And then Carrie busts her balls and saying,
it's like everybody's playing their little game, trying not to seem one way or another.
I would say everyone's trying to go lightly into every little new area.
Right.
I mean, you know, they're all trying to just sort of, is this something that's going to work? Is this something that's going to work?
Well, and it's one of those things where like going lightly can be a great way to go about things, but it can have consequence too, like of how, you know, like of not being forthright sometimes or just not being. So it can totally work out or it can, you know, blow up in your face.
And going lightly has the word go in it, which brings us to the next storyline, which was a big departure for us, is Seema and her going out of her job. Why did we want to break Seema away from her real estate job?
Well, I think we wanted to, up the ante on Seema's ambition. I mean, I think a lot of women at this age actually do reach a moment where they think, oh, okay, I'm in my mid-50s. I've done pretty well. I could just enjoy the fact that I've done pretty well, or I can pivot and really double down on myself, use everything that I've learned all these years and like really take my dream to the next level.
I think that's the ultimate journey, but I really wanted to knock the pins out from underneath her. I mean, one of the great things about drama writing or comedy writing, which is what drama is really, is just the idea that you're taking away something that's firm and throwing somebody into another arena. And I personally, my husband, Craig, has a lot of women friends, and they all work in high-end apparel jobs. And I've seen 1 or 2 lose their job because of a downsizing of a company. And I've often felt like, what? That's their whole life. They spend all their life building that job, and now it's suddenly gone because, well, that's what's happening everywhere, because of a shift or a downsize. A new company buys another company. And so the idea of having, I always felt very, very like that's powerful, and also happens. That happens to women.
Yeah.
And it's not 20-year-old women.
And it also, we have only seen Seema so far in 2 seasons. We've only seen her sort of floating through life at the top of her game professionally, even though she struggles romantically. Like, she's been so easy breezy, confident.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the business world is rough. It's almost as rough as the romantic world sometimes. And so Seema enters her partnership. Paust and Patel, Elliot Paust, tells her that he's retiring. And we talked a lot about how she wouldn't be totally blindsided by him saying, you know, so we had a plan when you retire. And he says, I'm retiring now because he's 90. This happened to me with my accountant. Who is straight. After my business manager, I took him to lunch after he retired. And I said, so how are you feeling about letting go? He goes, I'm 90. I'm like, what? I didn't know. That's both the scariest and most thrilling thing I could hear, that someone was still at the top of their game at 90. Yeah. And the idea that she would have misjudged when her window of taking over was. And then we got lucky enough to have Ryan Serhant come in and be a real titan that makes this whole thing. It's like, when Carrie's on a runway and we say she's wearing Gucci, she's wearing Gucci. When we say a Manhattan real estate titan is buying the company and it's actually Ryan, it goes another level into something.
Well, and also there's something interesting with Seema. It's like, she will have a job. It's not like she's losing her job, but it's like, it's how much does the title and how much does that mean to her, And it's an interesting thing where it's like, it is just a title, but that title means everything to you sometimes. And it's
her name is on the company.
Her name, yeah.
That's the whole thing. And she'll be number 2 versus number 1, which is like, in relationships, a lot of women are told to be number 2. And she doesn't have to do that. She's the lady in last season said, I don't have to go to the Hamptons and be the third wheel. I could, but I don't have to. I don't want to.
And I don't want to follow my boyfriend on his movie career.
Right.
So she has
all
so
over the world.
Boundaries and
the idea of creating a shift in her world so much that she really has to decide again how strong she is really important. But at first, of course, she's going to just take a walk with the champagne, and she calls Carrie, who's shopping with Harry, the Harry Carey scene you've been dying, the Japanese denim store, which Samantha actually wrote in, and then we had to go get that store, and they agreed.
It was very
luckily,
chic.
It was gorgeous and wonderful.
I have good taste. I don't show it, but I have it.
This is true.
But the idea of Carrie and Harry is cute, and then the word Harry, Carrie, she's going to kill herself, and then Seema calls and says, I'm coming. I'm coming to Virginia. And then we cut into the front of Carrie's house where Adam meets Seema for the first time.
I'm Adam. I'm also known as New York's Plant Picasso by the readers of Vogue.com.
I'm Seema, also known as Carrie's Virginia +1.
Ah, Virginia, enjoy the dogwoods.
Oh, I'm not a nature girl. I will be enjoying the cocktails.
And of course, Adam is played by Logan Marshall Green, another genius casting from Tiffany Burney and Danielle.
Do you want to talk about that, Sam?
Yes, I do. He's so hot. He's so hot. He's so hot. And he was looking at her like he wanted to. Oh, I mean, you wouldn't believe how hot. But there is some smoldering chemistry when she's in the car and he is looking at her like he wants to gnaw on her like a bone. And I mean, I had only seen them like together before I saw it in the show on the table read, and you don't get a good nobody's really like giving vibes through the table read screen. But the two of them on screen together, I was like, what is this gonna be?
It's also like
really
they're both. It's also fun because they're two people that there's types of people that when they interact with the world, they're starting from a place of just informality and just kind of like playfulness or kind of just like a little wit. And the two of them are two people that kind of are just already not small talkers, they just go straight into things, but are very different. And so like right from the start, you get this interaction that's just like alive. It's not like polite, like, oh, I'm trying, looking for Carrie. It just pops up in this way. And I think it's a very impactful, like whatever that scene is, 30 seconds or a minute, you're like, okay, there's a vibe, and it's also a beautiful setup.
It's a beautiful setup, and he's holding Lily of the Valley, and he's standing there with his nephew Jamie, who is on the spectrum, and it just starts getting wider and wider and wider who he is. And when he says, "This is my nephew Jamie," Seema clocks it. If you look at it ever again, and she says, "A man with great taste," and you just see the look on Adam's face that he appreciates. That's how she framed this last moment. And then Carrie comes down in the sexy outfit she's going to be in for the next 3 days.
I just want to add one thing, because people who are listening to this might not realize that we spend 5 months writing the scripts and inventing people like Adam long before we know who's going to actually be Adam. So it's always a thrill to see, like, by the time we're filming and we've filmed and shot, who actually shows up, what that chemistry actually is on screen. It's a whole journey for us. And that as writers, even we're excited by
and also
the mystery of it.
As writers, we've created a very high bar.
Yeah.
We've imagined somebody, and then they have to show up somehow. I mean, we've done the best imagining of this dreamy guy doing this scene with, we knew Sarita, we didn't know Adam, and it's just like,
we
casting gods, please. And, you know.
And we knew we just wanted her opposite.
So anyway, Carrie comes down in her outfit and we hear the title and it's like Carrie going light. She only has one little bag and her laptop and they're going. And then Seema says, he's hot, but I don't like men with dirt under their nails. And if you're any rom-com aficionado, you know.
You sniff it out.
You know.
He loves all the Sex and the City just like that.
And then the decadence of seeing them on a plane, come on. You know, like you don't really believe anyone's going anywhere unless you see that. We could have done the scene without the plane, but we kept going, you know, to production, John Melfi, everybody, we were like, plane, 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 because then you actually believe they left. And you get to see Seema on vacation saying to that steward, saying to Sam Pancake, another great actor who we got to do the show, he goes, I think we talked about you bringing me a vodka tonic, you know, like a tequila tonic, you know. I mean, she's already like spring breaking it.
Yeah.
No, she needs it. And well, because it's also like she's so desperate to get away, but it's, you know, there's the reality. She's not going to some fabulous place. She's going to a literary conference in Royal Virginia.
And then Carrie,
she's going to do it her way.
But she's going to do it her way. And then Carrie has one of my favorite jokes. She has the Adderall in her bra, which is a Samantha thing. And later, much later, she says, Sonia, to slow down in the car, and I don't want to be pulled over. And she goes, Seema says, I hear you, Adderall Bra Express. Carrie thinks she has to hide Adderall in her
Carrie's
bra.
really embracing the drug mule.
She's into it.
It feels,
she is on board.
She is into it.
She's rolling with it.
You know, anytime you get a chance to go out of town, you're taking a risk. When we did the LA episodes in Sex and the City, people are like, we hate these. We don't like these episodes. But they don't like it because it's a change.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to balance like, oh, now they're in Virginia. Now we're back in New York. And so what being back in New York meant to us is Charlotte goes clubbing. Yeah. Charlotte goes clubbing. And Miranda goes on a date. But Charlotte goes clubbing.
Let's talk about the exploration of how Charlotte stays awake all night. Well, first she's, of course, with Harry, and they do their thing, and Harry, of course, has to go home
because his pants can't move. First of all, his pants can't bend. And then he goes into the bathroom, and I have to say, from the directing point of view, everything that happens in the bathroom when Harry pees himself, it's all in one camera shot, and Evan does it all. I just follow his face, go down when he's in, comes back up, and he goes, oh, shit. And then that extra comes in, the world's tallest extra with a big leather top hat. And I couldn't be happier. And then suddenly the AD send in some great looking extra. And you're like, well, now the scene's perfect. But then he can't go and Charlotte has to go alone because he wants her to go. She gets some shots for the club.
Yep.
And then she goes off with the art world.
And I remember a day in the writer's room where it was being floated around, kicked around that maybe Charlotte does some coke. And that, I personally remember, like, that felt like a bridge too far for our
so
Charlotte.
That's too much drugs for you?
I think we found my line.
We found the Elisa Zuritsky line.
I did
Got a little
not.
too personal.
That didn't sit well with me. I think, like, even old and new Charlotte, I just couldn't get my head around that.
I don't think Charlotte ever did coke.
No.
In the series, even.
No. So
fun time to start.
Took it,
with 2 kids and a job, it is a good time.
Took his lingus, yes.
It's a different
Coke,
storyline.
no.
They're really looking to. But the espresso martinis for whatever the past like 5 years, however long, are essentially they do the trick.
And
they're everywhere, and they're also.
It's like yes.
And it is a caffeinated express that will really get you through. And that, Charlotte on that. tear away, especially because it's like 1 will, get you excited, but 3 will last you till
dawn.
dawn. That reveal.
And another reason we're doing espresso martinis is because we'd already done her drunk. And we didn't want to do drunk Charlotte. We wanted, because we already did that. It was like, what's the new level?
Right.
What's the comedy?
What's her version of coked up?
Yeah,
and
and it was espresso martinis.
And she is working. Like, she is still, like, she wants to be clear-headed in such a way, but it's that balance of, like, a job where it's naturally, like, art galleries, they go to these fairs all the time, and it's like, they're staying out.
A lot is happening after hours.
Yes.
And that brings up Rolf, right?
Rolf, yes. Rolf slash Dutch. Used interchangeably throughout the episode,
The
which is
Scandinavian
great.
big player who's buying a lot of art that Leela has a mad crush on, and Charlotte's thinking, I can sell that painting to him and catch up with everybody else's totals of what they sell.
Yeah.
So she's got an eye on him, and he's like, she keeps coming. I'm here for the espresso martinis because this guy is going to spend millions of dollars last year. She's not standing there just for fun. When she hears the guy say, this girl is the one who I spent $1 million on last year, then she's like, espresso martini, please.
I'm doing this.
I'm doing this. And so we went all over New York to look for a club that's, there's an after-hour
We
club,
needed
which is
two
we needed 2
clubs.
clubs. We need the after party and then the after party. The after party is cute. The art department put all the bartenders into Andy Warhol drag, which I thought was so great. That all of a sudden you just look behind you and they're serving as Andy Warhol, and then they drink the martinis and they go into the after party. And production, we were like, okay, it's like, too seedy, gross. No one wants to see Charlotte there. Disgusting. There's definitely sticky floors. No one wants to see Charlotte there. But like, this is a club that felt almost like a nightclub in Batman to me. It was like, oh, this is like cartoon club, and it's colorful and great, and they're all dancing, and it's like Charlotte, wink, wink, going back to Staten Island when she's like, woo, with the Staten Island iced tea back in the day on in Sex and the City. She's doing the exact same Charlotte moves. Yeah. The exact same
signature dance.
But even
Peanut
as she's
style.
drunk, she's still selling. I want to talk to you. And he says, let's go in another room.
And she's also girl friending. Like, she's doing both. She's like, I'm going to sell this painting and I'm going to be like a great...
I'm going to get my friend laid.
Exactly.
And speaking of coke, you
best
cut
friend.
into the bathroom scene, and there's Anastasia and Kai doing coke, which is kind of shocking.
Totally, yeah.
And then I'm like, that's exciting. I'm thinking, I'm glad we're doing that, because they're just nice girls who are doing coke at night. And then you cut to Leela, who is having the existential girlfriend breakdown about, if I don't fuck Rolf tonight, I'm going to die. Charlotte's very ground up. You're not going to die. You're just going to go home and do whatever, fall asleep.
And do the equivalent of, what is it, the girl equivalent of blue balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she
very
said,
maternal. Very maternal.
She says at the earlier party, she says, Leela says, last time I felt his dick through his pants and I almost came right there. And Charlotte goes, okay, well, maybe next time, puts air quotes. Kristen said, how am I going to do that? I said, put air quotes. Don't feel his dick through his pants. Like, she puts air quotes around it. The negotiation of how to get these things all to fly.
And people say Charlotte hasn't evolved. I mean, come on.
But she's still there's always retaining that level of the core Charlotte, where she's not,
And then Leela's like, you have to help me. Help me get him to like me. And then as he comes out, Leela goes behind Charlotte and mouths, help me. Like it's a demand. And then he says, then Charlotte's going to help by saying there's somebody who has a crush on you. And it sounds like it's Charlotte. And so he goes for a kiss.
Which was also a fun thing that we talked about in the room. Like, well...
How much of a kiss?
Can Charlotte ever be?
How deep is the kiss?
Exactly.
Right. The reason we wanted Harry to go away and pee his pants is so that we could get Charlotte in a moment where someone could do something inappropriate.
Yeah.
And we decided to kiss, and we had to make her a little bit culpable so that the guy is misreading signals. So it's all this back and forth in the writing room. And then, of course, she gets the hell out of there. And she goes outside and it's in the daytime.
The drilling really seals the deal of just
Yes.
that headache she must be experiencing. That bright light too. It's not sunrise light golden. It's like bright, harsh light.
And while we're with Charlotte on that crazy journey, we're also with Miranda having a very different evening. She and Joy are having very sophisticated cocktails, and you get the sense of what this really is. And through the guise of work and breathing, they sort of jumpstart a beginning of something, a passion.
And they're in that. I love the way this scene is written too, because it's, it's Miranda kind of in that gray zone, still in under the guise of work.
Not
like the
wanting
whole drink is not a date per se, but it's so I don't know. It's so nuanced to see Joy kind of. Well, there's the chemistry between them is just so delicious, and then to see Joy kind of in that space with her too, and like turning it into a date, and it's just nicely.
And the way it was written, I remember. I mean, there's just like several when Sam writes scripts of the show. Like I feel like the sex scenes or the sexual scenes in that way are like she can make the least sexual situations seem like steamy and sensual in such a way, or just that, and it is that line where it's like professional but not. But
What
I remember
can I
reading
say?
that
It's a gift.
and being that sapphic magic you got there, Samantha. I was like, how is this breathing make?
The breathing and talking about, and it also still has a joke on the end, which she says, now try doing that while talking to a camera about famine. But listen, I want to say that every now and then I'm watching something and like an actor sears. I mean, they say like burn a hole in the screen is like a old hot-timey Hollywood thing. But there's a moment in this scene where Dolly Wells is talking and the camera pushes in on her. And it's like it sears into, it's almost like when people do a wood grain on a piece of wood and it just goes zhoop. And that moment for me when I was watching her, I was like, zhoop, she's in the show. Like this is a force, not only as an actor, but this is a thing. It has such beauty and depth and
grace,
weight to it. Do you agree? Oh my
Yes.
God. And then watching Cynthia meet her, that equal power.
The two of them together are so good.
It's a great way to start them.
I love it too how she, classic Brit, like everything's a joke, but then when she drops the joke for a second, and like you're saying, Michael, that look she gives, it's just like, it's an intensity there that's just, it's a very like, she's a very present person when she like means it. It's like, it's intimidating in the right way. And it's something that's exciting for the season.
To address what Elisa said, either of them could get out at any moment. Nothing has been said that is incriminating. They're both safe zone. They're both fully not taking the wrong place in case, and which shows to me they're both vulnerable.
Yeah.
Neither one is going for it, but they're both sort of in the zone of it. It's really great. And we kind of, that's New York. And then, except for LTW. LTW has a really sort of come to Jesus scene after the Herbert scene where she goes back and literally apologizes when Grace is leaving. She says, it was me.
Yeah.
And then Grace has that moment where she says, I don't know if I can, LTW says, I don't know if this is you or me. Grace has that next moment, which is, it's you.
Yeah, you've got this. We know that they love each other as friends. And so that was, that was a really small, nice, and like restorative way to do it.
And when Quincy as
to
Grace,
put a bow on that.
Yeah, and when Quincy as Grace says, you're passionate to tell these women's lives, in that moment, that whole project feels real to me because what's on the screen, these two women talking about what they've been working on for 8 years, it's potentially like slippery ice to say we're making a doc series about unknown black sheroes, and then you see it happening and you're like, I believe this now. And because LTW is so vulnerable and Grace is so magnanimous, it's a lovely finish.
And I want to say one more thing back to casting. Quincy Tyler Bernstein is a perfect example, playing Grace, is a perfect example of we came up with the Grace character 6 months earlier, and then we didn't know that Quincy was going to wind up being Grace. And the first time we saw her at the table read, the very first table read where she showed up in episode 1, and she had a few lines here and there, and but she brought so much to those lines.
Oh, very real.
Yeah.
Just
We're like, she needs more to say.
She needs
more. And because what should be said is it's organic. It's ongoing, us writing. We've written scripts, and then as it develops, we start to lean into things we want to see more of. And from the minute Quincy opened her mouth and did that dimension with 3 lines, we're like, it's substantial.
They have worked together for 8 years.
I believe it. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
So while that's all going on, Carrie and Seema have arrived in Virginia, and they're having dinner in a beautiful, traditional
dining room.
In a hotel, in a Southern hotel, and they're talking about the career crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And Seema says, "I don't want to be number 2," and Carrie says, kind of flippantly, "Well, I'm my guy's number 4."
Yeah.
And is that true? And she goes, "Oof, that's a lot to say." And then Seema defends Aidan.
Yeah.
Says, "I think he's doing his best, unlike the people I work with."
Yeah.
And they can't get fried chicken because Mama went heart healthy. Mama went heart healthy. I mean, he's great. And so they leave that. Seema decides, I'm gonna do it. I'm not going to take second place. I'm going to go on my own. And then in our kind of great world, someone makes a big statement, and then the next time you see them, they go, "You know what? Maybe not." And this is where she says, "Maybe I'm crazy."
Yeah.
To go out on my own. It's the two of them on a bed eating fried chicken. And it's just so, to me, it's so beautifully still, and I really believe them as friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually watching it again. I was like, I can't believe they're like new friends in the scheme of things. It just felt so. It was just, it's a perfect, that high low and the oddity of like when you're with a friend in an odd situation, and Seema knocking on her door because she's staying in a different room, or whatever. It's like perfectly. I know, I love that scene so much.
Well, but the thing is, Seema's saying, we're acknowledging at my age, do I want to do this? It's realistic. And then,
And then Carrie also, it's like Seema's having this professional crossroads, and Carrie is in that moment finally vulnerable enough to admit to herself and Seema
why didn't he invite me?
She's vulnerable
because
about
we've
her
seen
love
her
life.
have a phone call to Aidan right before this, and we see the farm for the first time, and we see Aidan, and she finds out the farm is only 20 minutes from where they're going to have lunch, and then there's a silence. He doesn't invite her. And that brings up her nerves.
Yeah.
And then she says, "What's the point?" And there's an interesting line in the scene where she says, "You don't ask, you don't get." Carrie says to Seema about, "Do you know if your name can be in the company or not?" from Ryan Searhand. And she says, "You don't ask, you don't get." And then at the end of the scene, she says, Seema says to Carrie, "Do you think maybe you're being too easy-breezy? You don't ask, you don't get."
Right.
Next scene is at the car rental place. Carrie's driver's license is expired.
2017. How's that possible? I love that. How is that even
for real. Like,
How is that
do you
even
go?
possible?
possible?
1987. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
So Seema's driving, and Seema's, of course, somebody who doesn't drive. Seema's someone who's been driven, and she gets a FaceTime from Searhand, and she's going to actually take the FaceTime while driving. And Carrie's like, "No, you're not." And they pull into a automatic golf place parking lot. She makes a call. She finds out it's not possible. And Seema accepts the fact that she'll be number 2. And then as they start out, the non-driver Seema drives over the
Backs up over the treadle.
No, she drives forward over the treadles where you're not supposed to. Anyone who drives sees those treadles, and it shakes fear to their core. Every time I see treadles, I'm like, am I going the right way?
Yeah.
Am I going the right way? And I look twice. Is this the right way, or is that the right way? Anyway, so the comedy cartoon of Seema going on those things, and then they have to call for help. Easy breezy isn't easy breezy, and Aidan comes in a hot sexy, busted down Ford truck,
Mm-hmm.
all American, and picks her up.
Looking too good.
And invites her. Oh, Seema, when it doesn't back up, the sign says don't back up. And Seema had been asking the universe for a sign, and she goes, there it is, go forward.
Yeah.
Don't back up. So they drop Seema off at the airport, and Carrie and Aidan, he invites her. She's excited. Come stay for breakfast and a light lunch, he says. And then they go to his farm. And it's the first time we're seeing it. It's very pastoral and very beautiful and very night. And just when you think they're going to get out of the car and go in the house, Aidan has a thought.
So listen, I didn't get a chance to tell the boys you were coming.
But it's okay that I'm here?
Yeah. Yes, but we got this thing now where the night before we lay out what the next day's going to be.
And you don't want to just, like, spring me on them?
Well, no, but yeah, kind of.
Parent, do you want to talk about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, some people might, it'll be interesting to see how people react because some people might be angry at Aidan for this. Other parents might feel like, no, when you have kids, it is important, I hear, to try to be consistent and to try and have some systems in place, especially if your kid is having a hard time.
Right.
You want to
So
be predictable.
The idea is they don't want the kids, either of the kids, to wake up and see a woman in their house that they haven't been told about, especially if parents split, divorced. We don't know anything about any of them, their backstory, how much they've dated or not. So he says to Carrie, you're going to go in the guest house. And she's accepting it. And as they get out of the...
But she's thrown.
She's thrown a little bit.
Yeah.
She makes a couple of jokes, as we are wont to do, about, should I stand in a field sleeping like a horse? And he says, no, it's good air conditioning. And then she gives him the Adderall. And there's a look on his face that remains to be told as what that means. But she does say, you don't seem happy to see me. And then he makes up for it with a big Aidan kiss. And boy, he can kiss. He like, as you watch
All I want anyone to ever say about me.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Boy,
serious.
he can
As you watch this season, watch what his kisses do in terms of making things better and clearer for her. And if we are still tracking the fact that they have this very honest sex life, that kiss sort of says that's a placeholder, and now I'll walk you up to the house. And they walk away, and then we see Carrie in the guest room, which the old iron bed with Kathy's graphics on the wall and quilt, and she starts to write. And Samantha wrote this haunting sort of piece of writing about the woman, reminding us that it isn't contemporary, that she made it on a treacherous journey with her carpet bag. Isn't it her carpet bag intact? And she settles in. What's the last line for the long, cold night ahead? But what we wanted to really say here is, as the camera pulls away and pulls away and pulls away, we have Carrie alone in a bed and Aidan in his house with his sons. What's going to happen?
Especially the way it's shot, that pullback is just, I mean, I watched it a couple times because it's just the pullback is, there's the processing of that, and then they're seeing like the scope of this house and kind of being like first time really in Aidan's world, and it's just kind of like the oddity of showing up to a place in the night and having kind of a odd, welcome. I thought it really kind of like left that haunting vibe of happy to be there, but
also, I gotta say, as a member of the step-parent community, there's going to be a certain part of the audience that's like, girl, he did you a favor. Enjoy that quiet while you can.
Sam, could you speak to, just for a moment, about the process of writing that last voiceover for Carrie?
I think when I think of Carrie in my head, like when I write for Carrie. I feel like I know what she would say. Maybe it's because I hear like Michael's voice in my head sometimes when I'm thinking.
I don't think so. I would have never written that. That's your voice.
Well,
thank you.
Okay.
It's a great compliment, but I would have never written that. That is your voice. That's your Carrie you're hearing.
Yeah, I really channeled being alone. I write in the middle of the night. So I channeled kind of like being alone and feeling alone and how vulnerable and scared she must feel. Nothing is worse than, I identify probably too well with this part of Carrie's journey, the like, will the children like me? And I have to take a back seat. I have to to defer to these kids and, whatever. And so I think I tapped deep into my sad stepmom energy and just like thought about what it's like to be, in the back house with your little bag of stuff far away from home.
And forgetting the thing we forgot is that's what's so great about the voiceover. Carrie's lost her things. They're left in the rental car. So she's literally only there with her laptop and her outfit, and she's lost her comfort. That's gone out of her hands.
Not having your suitcase is like,
yeah,
it's like missing a limb.
And I also think the language, and I'm going to say for me, when I saw the very specific period language that Samantha wrote in this, I was like, that's the way to go. That's the way to go. We should lean into the idea of history and time and not make it generic, but make it very specific.
I feel like she would. I feel like if Carrie was going to write a historical novel, she'd write the most historical novel anyone has ever written.
And it's such a sweet, lonely, sad night that maybe will turn into a happy day. We'll see.
And if not a happy day, a good book.
That is the joy of being a writer.
Yeah.
Hey, this is pretty awful, but maybe I can turn it into something great.
Right away.
It's true.
10 seconds after.
And just like that, we've reached the end of episode 3. Carrie Go Lightly. I want to thank our writers, Samantha Irby, Elisa Zuritsky, and Lucas Froehlich for doing an amazing job talking about this episode. We'll be back next week to unpack episode 4 entitled Apples to Apples. Stream new episodes of And Just Like That, Thursdays on Max. And Just Like That, The Writer's Room is produced by Sony Music Podcasts for Max. At Sony, Sharon Morris is the executive producer, Gianna Palmer is the lead producer, Sammy Allison is head of production. Tamika Balance-Kalasny is our production manager, and Sam Baer is our engineer. Special thanks to Becky Rowe, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, Kenya Reyes, and Aaron Kelly from the Max Podcast team. Thank you for listening.